a lot of the activists who I've talked to are people who really know this, including lawyers and have worked on this for years, are very dismayed that the DNC is not taking this as seriously as they need to. They see articles like I think it was the UK Telegraph yesterday or so, where the Obama campaign is predicting a landslide in 5 or 6 states, and they're not convinced that there will be a landslide. In fact, they're worried that things can happen. What they're worried about is that in Republican counties that the Democrats are not going to win, that people might alter the vote count and the turnout totals and shift the percentages electronically, which is what they think happened in Southern Ohio in 2004. So there are ways to mitigate against this or ways to fix this. But the thing is, those ways apparently have not been digested or heard by the DNC or the people who are having these discussions now about what to do on Election Day.
One of the things that we want to focus on in this segment is what people can do. So in light of that, is there something that people can do? Bo, let's start with you, and then I'll come back to Steve. Should we all be flooding the Board of Elections and the DNC and the RNC, if you're that way inclined, with our worries?
Well, I think it's absolutely clear that we've got to have a lot of citizen activism to change the course of where we've gone with elections. Sometimes it's like butting your head against the wall, or maybe most of the time it's like that. But it really is necessary to do that. Whether in the heat of the campaign right now in the last 30 days one could make much headway with the DNC, I don't know. But I think it's absolutely incumbent on people who work with their Board of Elections, observe testing of machines, observe counting of ballots where that happens. Citizens have to become part of the process of running elections, not just go down, cast your vote, and go away.
Steve, back to you. With respect to what people can do, your book is Count My Vote, A Citizen's Guide to Voting, but it's really a whole lot more than that. You give a citizen's guide to an array of things that people can do. On this question, is there something people should be doing right now?
Well, the thing that people should be doing first is making sure that they and all of their friends and their family and their community are registered to vote. Because voter registration deadlines start closing in half the states this coming Monday. And if you're not registered, you can't get through the starting gate, and that's where the process begins. Moving on from that, there are efforts inside the Democratic Party or inside the Obama campaign or outside, depending on people's level of interest for what they can do. So, for instance, if you want to be involved with the Obama campaign, you should go to your county offices and find out what they're doing on the ground. If you don't want to do that, you should call your county election officials and see if they need poll workers, if you want to do that. There are people who are doing independent exit polls that will be in Ohio, Missouri, and I'm thinking for a second, and Pennsylvania. There are people in Ohio, the Green Party, for example, they have observer status. That means they can go in and observe the counting at the county levels and the precinct levels. That's unprecedented. You see, the big solution come election night is in a handful of swing counties, in a handful of swing states, people have to verify how many people have signed in to vote and compare that with the electronic totals, or the totals however they're calculated. Because that is where the vote count inflation happens.
So have you got a right, have you or I as a citizen got a right to go and ask for those sign-in tallies?
Well, it depends. The organization that is most able to do this is the Democratic Party, and this is what the DNC should be organizing, and there should be, with all the energy that's in the Obama campaign, this is what they should be focusing on. But the Green Party in Ohio is trying to do this independently, and other people, for instance, who are doing these exit polls, they're trying to find a third way to see that the counts that are reported are accurate. So, but the basic bottom line, the way to quarantine problems is to verify the number of people who sign in at the precinct level to make sure that the county vote counts are accurate and that nobody is messing with the numbers in between the precincts and the county stage. And that way, if problems emerge, they can be quarantined or they can be isolated according to voting machine type or according to contractors who's worked on the machines, if they're partisan contractors. And that's the piece that a lot of people are trying to get the DNC to focus on, and they have not yet made that sale. They haven't closed that argument.
So if there's some kind of a problem, at the end of the day, we'll be able to go and say that's where the problem happened. It won't get buried in the whole state results. Deanna, there's a comment on the website. I was a software engineer for 10 years. If there is no clear paper trail of ballots that can be counted by other means, both mechanical and human, the possibility of fraud is enormous and can be made virtually undetectable. You agree?
Absolutely. 300%. Yes, that's the argument that we've been making along the line. It's sort of terrifying in the end that any, as I said in the beginning, any piece of software can have a software fix added to it.
And there are software engineers who have been willing to sign off on all this technology, though.
But what happens, the way the machines get sold by salespeople who then set them up for you and program for you, and what I've learned actually through Steve and through his writing is that the people that are selling and programming these machines are partisan GOP operatives. And so you might have a machine that starts out being valid and okay and great, but then, you know, who is setting this up for you in your precinct?
Finally, I said that I would give you a chance to tell your success story, Bo, and go for it. We've got about a minute and a bit. Tell us what happened in New York and why it is that New Yorkers will not, at the moment, be voting on these paperless electronic voting machines.
Well, it was a long battle and a testament to citizen activism. Back in 2003, when I first heard about electronic voting, I'm also a software engineer in my career, and as soon as I heard about that, I went, that's a terrible idea, because I understood what software was. A lot of people, though, were really embracing it. Sure, we use computers for everything. Why not for voting? So what I did was prepare a little presentation, and I started taking it around the state. And over time, I wound up everywhere in New York State, giving my little 40-minute presentation. It really resonated with people, and I think the issue really resonates with people. Inherently, people understand that there shouldn't be trust in computers. Right. From there, we went to building little groups. We worked hard in Albany. We worked very strongly getting the media on our side, and we waged a very successful media campaign in New York, editorial boards, opinions. So we did really well here. Took us 5 years, but we finally got to the point where we won over the majority of not only the state legislature, but also ultimately the county election commissioners.
All right. Congratulations. Bo Lipari is Executive Director of New Yorkers for Verified Voting. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Deanna Zandt, our very own tech girl. Thanks so much for contributing to the program. Steve Rosenfeld is the author of Count My Vote, A Citizen's Guide to Voting, just out now from AlterNet Publishers. That's the folks behind AlterNet.org. Thanks so much, Steve, for joining us. Steve's going to be, I believe, right here in studio with us here on GRITtv tomorrow. We all remember Diebold in 2004 when Americans became concerned about the partisan leanings of some voting machine makers. It was Diebold that became the focus, and it's easy to understand why. Diebold's been renamed since, but the relationships are unchanged. From David Earnhardt's Uncounted, here's a clip titled Privatization of Elections.
What has changed in terms of the role of private companies has been the technology. With the new generation of touchscreens, it's very hard to find people who really understand enough about the machines to use them properly.
What do y'all want this machine to do? Excuse me.
So the default position is asking the private companies to provide their own technicians to come in and effectively run the election on behalf of the public.
The absolute control over the election process that a company like Diebold potentially could have, from tabulation to the software that's inside, it's concerning to people.
It shouldn't be. I'll be blunt. Diebold does not control the elections.
Voters should not have to rely on any private company for the security and fundamental fairness of their election system.
If you privatize the votes and allow private companies with secret software to essentially count your votes for you, and they're partisans of the president, then of course they'll steal the vote because we've made it easy for them.
So if you're starting to abdicate that responsibility to private for-profit companies, who have every interest in making themselves look good long before they worry about having integrity in the process, then you're beginning to seriously compromise the bedrock of American democracy.